ओम गणानां त्वा गणपतिं हवामहे उपमश्रवस्तमं ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनश्वन्वन्नोतिभिः सीद। श्रीमहागणाधिपतये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। प्रायः कलत्रं पशवः सुतादयः गृहामही कुञ्जरकोशभूतयः सर्वेऽर्थकामाः क्षणभङ्गुरायुषः कुर्वन्ति मर्त्यस्य कियत्प्रियं चलाः। So gruhaha is a home. So you need a home, you need a place to live. That is, you need a roof on the head. But there is a thing called self-aggrandizement or ego-aggrandizement. So, you see, an object for its utility value is understood. It has a utility value and we need to have it like a home. We need to have it. Even sannyasis who are supposed to have left home, they also will go and make a home. Because ultimately nobody is going to live under a tree. That is not going to work like that. So we need a home. But what people do, they don't use the home as a roof on the head alone. They use the home to aggrandize the ego. Like, my home is bigger than your home. Or my home is $1 million home. Whereas everybody else's home is not even $100,000, whereas my home is $1 million home. And so in India we have BHK. That is how they use it. BHK, bedroom, hall, kitchen. So your home, is it 2 BHK or what BHK? 2 BHK. Ours is 4 BHK. So like that. At the end of the day, nobody is going to sleep in 3 rooms, they can only sleep in 1 room. Even the king who has a palace with 100 rooms, he is not going to roll in every room every night, just because he owns them. He has to lie down in 1 room. Therefore, house becomes a means of self-aggrandizement. That is what is being objected to. That won't take you anywhere. House is not meant for self-aggrandizement. Even he says gruha, mahi, land. Again, landlord. You see, how much land one needs. I remember there was a discussion between Dharmaraja and Draupadi in Aranya Parva of Mahabharata. Draupadi nags him, you lost all the kingdom. Our kingdom was expanded, it expanded from north to south or east to west. So it used to take 5 or 6 days to cover the entire kingdom. Such a huge kingdom we used to have, and you lost all of it. Like that she was nagging him. Then he said, what will you do with all that kingdom? What all you need is this much food. A fist, this much food is all that you can eat. What will you do with all that land? If Duryodhana is enjoying that, nobody enjoys also. He has this feeling that I own this land or I own this kingdom. Let him have it. We are doing fine in the forest. Like that Dharmaraja says. And so Draupadi, she was surprised how much wise he is, how much dispassionate he is. So like that, Mahi, land. I possess this much land, that much land. See, people in America, and must be so in Canada also, I don't know, but certainly people from America, they purchase properties in India. In fact, there is a mela of properties in India, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Delhi, etc., flats are for sale. They are on sale now. Like that in New Jersey, there was a mela, because all customers were in New Jersey. They are there in New Jersey. In addition, the mela happened. And so hundreds of flats were sold. And they purchased. The idea is India, when we go back to India, it will be useful. When we visit India, it will be useful. And once you purchase, you will know. It is use is 1% and the hassle is 99%. You will know once you enter into it. For example, one family, they purchased the flat in Hyderabad, but they are now looking anxiously for a buyer because they cannot live there. You know why? Because in Hyderabad there is dust. Plenty of dust. 24/7, 365. Always dust. Because there is traffic and roads are not like here, very dirty roads. And as this dirt dries up, and the traffic will bring all of the dirt into the dust. And so there is a thick smog of dust all the time. And so the air that you are inhaling, it has dust in it. Whereas we can survive all of that. We are accustomed to that. People do have bronchial issues, and the hospitals they go, all that is there. This couple cannot stand dust for half an hour. Now when they will live there? And it's not that the dust will come down. When there is a rain, it comes down for a few hours. But when the roads become dry, again dust will go up. Traffic is always there. So you will have dust in Hyderabad continuously. There is no break in the dust. And this couple has an allergy for the dust. Now they are anxiously looking for a buyer. So it is it's an experience that can take away your peace of mind for a few years. All the Vedanta, meditation, calmness of mind, etc., you manage to get in 10 years, is lost in a week, and then you will regain it, if at all, after another 3-4 years. It is like making 2 steps forward and 4 steps backward. This is one case. Every single case is like that. You acquire property back in India, and those papers, etc., look very attractive, and the sense of possession, I own a flat in Delhi, that is the self-aggrandizement, some kind of self-satisfaction or self-aggrandizement. If you feel yourself, that is self-satisfaction. Ego is satisfaction. And if you tell it to others and feel great, that is self-aggrandizement. And so, what is the value of these properties? Mahi kunjara kosha bhutaya. We covered this, but I am completing the verse. Kunjara is elephant. This is the earlier culture. So they used to have elephants. Elephant is a symbolic of wealth. So one who has an elephant is considered very great, because to feed an elephant requires a lot of money. It is like in modern times they have these big dogs which look like a moderate, medium-sized horse. This dog, big dogs, very heavy-set dogs. They must be consuming plentiful of food every day, and they need a special kind of food. We can be vegetarian, but they cannot be vegetarian. And then they need protein, and they need occasional blood check and heart check, etc. What a mess it is. Even to think of it, you feel, oh my God. I don't want it for myself, and I don't want it for my worst enemy also. So Kunjara, if dog is like that, what to speak of an elephant? Then Kosha. Kosha is a treasure. So, and Bhuti. Bhuti is multiple forms of wealth. All these things are Artha Kamas, Artha and Kama. The same thing can be Artha, the same thing can be Kama. We have seen this. And they are aimed at aggrandizement of the ego. They do not serve any purpose. When we are hungry, they won't help us to overcome the hunger. Somebody has to give some food, even for the rich guy. And when we are sick, they won't help us to overcome the sickness. They won't help us to overcome body identification. When there is sorrow in the mind, suppose some pain is there, emotional pain. The bank account, you look at the bank account and get rid of the emotional pain. There is no such thing. Or you look at your 4 BHK and therefore my emotional pain is gone. No such thing. It never happens like that. These things are aimed at ego aggrandizement. And as long as you are trying to aggrandize the ego, you are on a path of falsehood. Because ego is false. And however much you aggrandize it, it is an unreal entity and it collapses. Even while you are aggrandizing it, it collapses. Therefore, even sadhus, swamis, they aggrandize the ego saying that I have 10,000 students. Where are these students? When the sadhu gets a stomach pain, the 10,000 students won't help. Really. And so we have 5 ashrams, 10 ashrams. It is all ego aggrandizement. There is no value in it. It is a huge pain. And then the followers will fight for these ashrams. They are all real estate. And nowadays real estate, they fight for it. They commit murders also for the sake of real estate. Even while the Mahatma is alive, they will be fighting. And there is so much of raga and dvesha that develops around these properties. They are not good for sadhus, what to speak of grahasthas. So, anyway, that aspect we have covered. He is just telling, Prahlada is telling, hey, Asura Balakaha, Kiyat Priyam Kurvanti, how much happiness would they be able to give to you? Very temporary, short-lived happiness they give. Some kind of good feeling that I own this, which is very short-lived. That is how they are. And ultimately, Chalaha. Chalaha means they walk away. Lakshmi Devi, that is how they say, wealth, doesn't stay at one place. Chala it is. Always chala. Always on the move. So, leaving behind broken hearts. The Lakshmi will be moving, leaving behind the broken hearts. So, running behind the wealth of this kind is folly. It has no value at all. Evam hi lokah kratubhih krata ami kshayishnavasatishaya na nirmalaha tasmad drushta shruta dushanam param bhaktyayikayesham bhajatatmalabdhaye. You may feel the verse is difficult to follow, but I don't think so. If you have some basic knowledge of Sanskrit, you should be able to make out. But certainly you can make out when I explain it. So this is how the accumulation of things in this world, the wealth, artha and kama in this world. But then, as I told you, there are two kinds of people. One person wants to acquire wealth and enjoy pleasures in this life, and he is not interested in heaven. Then there is another guy. he doesn't run after the wealth of this world. And he doesn't run after the pleasures of this world, because he wants the wealth and pleasures of the other world. This is the paradise seeking. They want paradise. Because in paradise, the bhogas will be there. They are not as short-lived as the bhogas, as the pleasures of the earth. Like that it is described. They are just descriptions in scriptures. You cannot have any proof for them. They are not meant to be proved. They are just to be meant to be believed. You believe it, that is all you have to do. You should not ask for proof and all that. There can be no proof. Sometimes some people say, I died and went there and I came back. Like that they say. So either they are outright bluffing, or they are good-meaning people, but they are misled by their own imagination. Either this or that. There is nothing like going up and coming down. There is no such thing. He felt like that he died. He never died. He came back. So, therefore, these lokas, which are created by performing rituals here, kratubhihi krataha loka. Maybe they are good. The pleasures that we acquire here are not good. The wealth that you acquire here is not going to stay. It is no good. But there you can have better things. Even these lokas are also the same. Suppose you acquire heaven. It is equally short-lived. Kshayishnavaha. So as the time is progressing, they slip away. That is their very nature. Kshayishnavaha. So very short-lived. And then there is the problems in those bhogas. What are the problems? One, kshayishnavaha, very short-lived. Therefore, as you believe that you will be enjoying further and further and further, it comes to an end abruptly, leaving this guy high and dry. And so, there is always a very heavy downside for every such bhoga. The bhoga makes the person very euphoric and very excited. He is in the clouds now, but he will remain there for a short time. And then there will be a fall, and the fall will be extremely painful. Therefore, even the bhogas, the pleasures of the heaven, are really dangerous. They will not make anybody fulfilled. So the problems are, the blemishes associated with such pleasures are, one, they are kshayishnavaha. Second, satishayaha. This is a very interesting thing. You see, suppose you make $1 million home. Suppose. Just I am giving you an example. Need not be like that. So, you make $1 million home. Then suddenly, all around are $1 million homes, and then the next property, somebody comes and he will make a $5 million home. Then your $1 million home looks so puny and so little, so worthless, that you will stop talking about it, because you feel a little shame to talk about it. Such a worthless thing it is. It is only $1 million, whereas all around there are 5 millions, 4 millions, like that. This is called this is a blemish associated with the pleasures, namely satisheya. It is there in our lives so much. If only we pay attention to it, we will know it. So, like there is a clerk, the manager feels great as he looks at the clerk. But then he cannot look at the clerk whole day. So he has to look around also. Then he looks up, then the general manager treats him in a very insulting way, and he cannot do anything about it. And then he feels like this, so small. So, satisheya. Wherever you reach, suppose in tennis somebody wins the Grand Slam 5 times, then there is someone else who has won it more times. Therefore he is small. He is small, he is great for a few minutes. But then suddenly he remembers somebody else, so he becomes small. And these people, they go to heaven. They are it is like coming to America or going to Dubai. In India, they are going to Dubai. So they go to Dubai. So in the Bombay airport, they are like kings, walking with a lot of there is a sprite in that step, and there is a regal majesty in the step. And now he sits in the flight and lands in Dubai. There, these trailers will be there. A trailer is made into 4 rooms, and in one room he has to put his bag and lie down there and work in the open all the day. And then he feels some of our other people coming from same place, same India or same state, they will be living in their own homes. So this fellow, having come to Dubai, feels very sad and very jealous about his own compatriots. They call it compatriots or whatever. So compatriots, not compatriots, means coming from the same place of India, but living in their own homes with wife and children. So the way he felt while he was in Bombay, he doesn't feel at all after landing in Dubai. The same thing will happen once this guy goes to heaven. Same thing will happen. Satishaya. In heaven he finds that there are others who have done greater punyam, and therefore they have better privileges. And when he is sitting there for a dance program, heaven means continuous dance programs will be there. And so as he sits there waiting for the dance program to commence, in the main, unless Indra comes, it won't come. This is another problem. It won't commence at the right time. Whenever Indra arrives, that is the right time. And so Indra arrives, and then the dance begins. So some music, dance, etc., it begins. And then when Indra arrives, he cannot continue to sit in his sofa. He has to stand up. And Indra will be going majestically, looking this way, that way, doesn't even look at this guy. So he will feel very sad. So here I am a nobody. So he feels sad. Because all these things are aimed at self-aggrandizement, They are aimed at aggrandizing the ego. And the same things which are supposed to aggrandize the ego, or which even aggrandize the ego for a short while, they themselves will pull down the ego to the dust. The same thing. The same $1 million home which has aggrandized the ego so much will pull down the ego to the dirt. And the same home, whenever he looks at it, he feels either very small or very anxious because he has to get rid of it or whatever. My God, I don't know. This is samsara, how the samsaris are managing with it. Kudos to them that they are able to go through this hassle and this roller coaster of emotional pain, suffering. They are able to go through it in the fond belief that it will bring some happiness to them. Kudos to their capacity to endure this nonsense. And then what a folly it is, what an ignorance it is, how sad it is. What else can be said? That is the second dosha, satishaya. And the third dosha, na nirmala. There is always in these pleasures, you think that you have acquired it very, very right way, legally and morally right, but there is always an element of sin associated with them. They are never entirely pure. In Vairagya, you are totally free from wrongdoing and papa. In Bhoga, however properly acquired it may be, however legally and morally acquired Bhoga it may be, there is always an element of impurity. They are never entirely pure. Na nirmala. This I leave it to your imagination. For example, in Hrishikesh, they do bhandaras. and give kambal and give dakshina to sadhus. Sometimes some sadhus say, I have heard them saying, these people come from Delhi, they come from Delhi. These Sethjis, etc., they come from Delhi and then give us nice food and nice kambal and nice dakshina. They are distributing some of the sin which they have done. And we are receiving all that. I don't know what will happen. Like that, some of the Mahatmas feeling very sad. So they cannot altogether say no, and yet they do not feel good to receive all this money. Because it looks like charity. There is charity, there is punyam, but it is not altogether free from papam. There is papa also in it. Because you to do so much charity, the fellow must accumulate first. And in accumulating, he has committed so many mistakes. So some papa is also accumulated along with wealth. And you distribute wealth, you gain some punya, and you distribute some of the papa also, along with the wealth that is distributed. This is how Mahatmas look at it, really. Therefore, nirmala. Similarly, going to the heaven, you need to perform a ritual, a prolonged ritual, 5 days or 12 days ritual, that will take you to the heaven, sure. But while performing such an elaborate ritual, there is some exploitation. Some people are exploited in doing that. Some sins are committed, some wrongdoing is always there, knowingly and unknowingly, because the focus is on the higher goal or greater goal. We go on compromising and cutting corners at smaller things, and in the process you get this much punyam, but this much papam also. They are not nirmala, na nirmala. You see, in Smriti there is a rule. If you do yajna, you do it with Shukla Dhanam, but not with Krishna Dhanam. Wealth, white wealth, not black wealth. That is what the Smriti says. Means the wealth which is acquired properly and for which the tax is paid up. So such wealth you should use for doing yajna. You should not use the wealth which is not acquired legally and morally. Some wrong methods are employed to gain that wealth, or it is gained all right, but tax is evaded partially. So now that becomes Krishna Dhanam. And if you declare no yajna will be performed, no ritual will be performed with black money, then there will be no big ritual in the entire country. Na nirmala. Rituals are great. Small ritual is all right. Suppose you take water, sun is rising. You have already finished your bath. Take some water in hand. Say Gayatri, offer. Second time, Gayatri, offer. Third time, Gayatri, offer. This is one of the most important rituals and most elevating ritual. How much money is required for this? You need not collect money from anybody. And you need not accumulate money yourself either. And even second person need not know that you are doing this ritual. And you just do this ritual with devotion, you will gain moksha. This Swarga, etc. are nothing before that. So, this is what we say, Sukshmam lo moksham. Moksha in very little thing. Like that. Therefore, these rituals, very elaborate rituals aimed at gaining heaven, they are not entirely free from wrongdoing. Na nirmala. Tasmat, therefore, so this is how the accumulation of wealth and pleasures in this world and performance of rituals to acquire pleasures in the other world, both are debunked in the verses. Both are set aside by considering the folly and the blemish associated with them. Tasmat, therefore what you should do, you should worship Param Isham. Parameshwara you should worship. You should not worship wealth and pleasures of this world. You should not worship the pleasures of the other world. And you should never worship God for these pleasures at all. You should worship, then why should we worship Ishvara at all? Suppose I worship Ishvara, I have to worship Ishvara and should not seek artha and kama, pleasures and wealth, then why to worship Ishvara at all? What for? Atmalabdhaye, to gain the knowledge of the self. For that reason alone you should worship. I want my heart to become pure, therefore I am worshipping Ishvara. I want to gain the knowledge of the self, therefore I am worshipping Ishvara. That must be the single goal. In doing such a worship, adrushta shruta dushanam, in that worship, the blemish, dushana, is not seen, is not heard of. And the pleasures of this world, and the wealth of this world, is invariably associated with known and unknown blemishes. The same is the case with the heaven. Some of the blemishes you can see that. You can see, oh, there is a blemish, you can see. But once you are committed to it, you cannot escape. And some of the blemishes you cannot even know, but they are there. So, whereas Ishvara you are worshipping. In Ishvara, there is no blemish. Either it is seen or it is not known. Known or unknown. Either kind of blemish cannot even touch Ishvara. And the worship which is aimed at gaining the knowledge of the self, it is entirely free from all kinds of blemishes. You know, very interestingly, when you are doing Nitya Karma, entirely to propitiate Ishvara for the gain of purity of heart and self-knowledge, even if the implements are inadequate, even if the karma is not entirely complete, it lacks in certain respects, still no harm. Because the goal is self-knowledge. The goal is not artha and kama. Therefore, a few blemishes, not blemishes, something missing here and missing there, is covered up by the purity of the goal. Therefore, the point is, when it comes to the karma, the motive is supremely important. The motive. This karma aspect I will discuss a little more in the coming verses. So, what is the motive? The karma, the action is worship of Ishvara. Therefore, action per se is pious. It is pure. Per se it is a very glorious thing. But the worship of Ishvara for gaining wealth, the motive is, it is the motive which pulls down the value of that karma. Now the karma is no more that pious. And it has already acquired a blemish in it. Therefore, karma must be backed by the best possible motive. Karma may be small, but motive should be pure. Then the smallness of the karma is covered very well by the motive. Karma may be very big, but the motive is self-aggrandizement. Then that karma loses its value then and there. Therefore, O Asura Balakas, you should worship Ishvara, Parameshwara, Param Isham Bhajata. Please worship. Bhajata means it is an address in plural. A plural, middle person. So not middle person, the opposite person. So you in plural, Bhajata, worship Ishvara. Param Isham Bhajata. Not for any pleasures, etc. Atmalabdhaye. How to worship? Ekaya Bhaktya. The Ekaya Bhaktya. This Eka Bhakti. You should understand this Eka Bhakti in comparison with Gita. In Gita, the word Eka Bhakti is used. Eka bhaktir vishishyate. See, 4 bhaktas are there. There this verse will come. You may check Gita after going home. So 4 bhaktas. Arto jijnasu artharthi jnani cha bharatarshabha. Udaras sarva evaite. All are great. But jnani tvatmaiva me matam. Jnani is myself. And jnani is superior among all these 4. You know why? Eka bhaktir vishishyate. Like that verse is there. One more small phrase is missing. I do not remember. Eka bhakti. Because jnani's bhakti is called Eka bhakti. For a variety of reasons. Eka bhakti is also called Ananya bhakti. You must be knowing the word Ananya bhakti. In Gita, it comes in a dozen places. So, bhaktya tvananyaya labhyaha ahamevam vidhorjuna. Like that, Ananya bhakti. So here Arjuna, you practice Ananya bhakti. Anya means other. Ananya means there is no other. There is no second. Same as Eka bhakti. So this is an occasion where you may want to brush up your knowledge of Gita a little by understanding the meaning of the expression Eka bhakti, which is same as Ananya bhakti. Suppose you are worshipping Ishvara. Ishvara is the one who is being worshipped. But you are separate from Ishvara and you abide as an ego distinct from Ishvara. That is not that kind of a bhakti based on division is not Eka bhakti. It is not Ananya bhakti. Okay? Then you are worshipping Ishvara. And you worship Ishvara for gaining wealth or for gaining heaven. That is all people do. Or for fulfilling some desire. That is how people do. So, every time you worship Ishvara, there is something else there. You put that something else between you and Ishvara. So, in the Sankalpa itself we do that. Like you put something else there. What? Heaven. So now you are worshipping Ishvara, but then there is something else. Heaven. Suppose you are worshipping Ishvara for heaven. Now where is your love? Is it love for Ishvara or is it love for heaven? It is love for heaven. So therefore it is not Eka bhakti. There is bhakti of Ishvara and there is bhakti of heaven. In India, whenever our friends go to US Embassy for a visa, they first do some puja, etc., and then go. And in fact, we have a temple in a town called Chilukuru, which is some 40 miles from Hyderabad. There we have a Venkateshwara temple. And that Venkateshwara Swami is called Vesa Venkateshwara Swami. The Swami is christened like that. He is Vesa Venkateshwara Swami. Like that, Swamis have names, like Abhaya Anjaneya Swami. He is not Anjaneya, he is Abhaya Anjaneya. Abhaya is the Christian. Then once I went to an Ayyappa temple. So they were discussing. Now they have to give a title to Ayyappa. So Lokesh Ayyappa, that is the title given to him. It is not simple Ayyappa, Lokesh Ayyappa. So they give a title like that, so that some element of sentiment or devotion is expressed in that title. And this Venkateshwara Swami is Vesa Venkateshwara Swami, not the same as Tirupati Venkateshwara Swami. And you believe me, I am not exaggerating, residents of Tirupati, when they want to go to Vesa, they come to Hyderabad and visit Vesa Venkateshwara. They don't visit Tirupati Venkateshwara Swami. They visit Vesa Venkateshwara Swami and then go and stand in queue for Vesa. See, our fellows are very clever, very manipulative, very crafty. Now they have entered into this field of rituals and now they have worked it out. Everything they have worked out and made a scheme. Now only God has to put his seal on this scheme. They assume God must have put the seal. God doesn't say anything, so he must have put his seal, and so they practice it. This is not called Ananya Bhakti, because there is always Anya there. Therefore, in a Bhakti, the goal is Ishvara only. Who is worshipped? Ishvara. For the sake of which goal? For gaining Ishvara. There is no other goal. And what about you? I also merge myself in Ishvara. I am not there, only Ishvara is there. That kind of bhakti in which there is only one, and that one is Ishvara. No phala asakti, greed for phala is not there, the ego is not there, only Ishvara is there. That is what is called the Ananya Bhakti. And whosoever practices such Ananya Bhakti will gain Ishvara. So that is important. Very nice. We have covered one area. Now we are coming into some more verses. But the topic is going to be more or less similar. It is not exactly repetition of what is all said, but other aspects of the same thing is considered further. Yadadhyarthyeha karmani vidvan manyasakrunnaraha karotyato viparyasam amogham vindate phalam. Very interesting verse. So here is an individual, Naraha, human being. So he is performing karmani. Karmani karoti. He is doing rituals. Asakrit karoti, again and again. Not just one ritual. So sakrit means one time. Asakrit. So now he performs a ritual, then a small gap, collects some energy, gets some more money and performs another ritual, and one more, like that. Asakrit. And then he is, what is he? Vidvanmani. Vidvanmani, it is a very powerful expression. It means he is sure about himself that he knows. Vidvanmani, I know it. He doesn't have a humble heart to consult some Mahatmas who know. That kind of humility he just doesn't have. He is sure he knows. Vidvanmani. And then goes on performing the rituals. So rituals performing for what? So always something or the other he aims. Yat adhyarthya. Always he has some goal in his mind. Some wealth, some home, some children, or some son or daughter or whatever, grandson or granddaughter, these are or long life, something. People have all kinds of desires. So I wish I can list a few more desires. All the time the same desires will be coming to the mind. So Visa is a new desire, somewhat better. So the field is changed a little. Visa. And then the job to the son, daughter, etc. And then so like that, college seat. In India, all kinds of desires will be there. Grihasthas have desires. Grihasthas are like that. And then, very interestingly, sannyasis have desires too. Because when they make big establishments, then the desires will creep in. They cannot avoid desires. Some desire, some expectation is always there. So, anyway, so Vidvanmani, here is the gentleman who is sure that he knows, and then performs rituals, always seeking something. Yad adhyarthya. Okay, the ritual is completed. Now the point is, will he get the phalam or not? Let us say. So, certainly he will get his phalam. There is no doubt about it. Certainly he gets his phalam. So, Certainly he gets the phalam, but the phalam is not what he is seeking. It is exactly the opposite of what he is seeking. So it happens like that. I did not appreciate the verse properly. I am reading the translation for your consideration. Besides, a man accounting himself wise invariably obtains results which are quite the opposite of the object, aiming at which he performs actions in this world, time and again. Very true. You see, this one time I felt like asking this question. I am happy that a verse which in a way validates the feeling that I had, I see it. You have performed so many rituals till now, seeking so many things. What is your experience? Are you fulfilled? Is there any fulfillment in you anywhere close to worth mentioning fulfillment did you get? Areyappa, you are performing rituals for results for the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and still you are planning one more ritual for one more result. What does it prove? So you think that you know everything. And so you know everything. Namely, you know the ritual and you know the result. This ritual will give this result and you know everything. Okay, if you are such a knowledgeable person, you know everything, and you have performed rituals for the last 20 years, by now you must be fulfilled and you need not perform any ritual anymore. That stage you must have attained. But where are you? Still planning some more rituals. You examine your knowledge. What you consider knowledge is no knowledge at all. Prahlada. So very powerful Vakya. I did not appreciate, I noticed that it is so powerful. So then Sukhaya Dukkha Mokshaya Sankalpa Iha Karminaha Sadapnoti Haya Dukkham Anihaya Sukhavrutaha. Very, very tough verses. They are tough. First of all, to make the syntax of the sentence, etc., it requires good knowledge of Sanskrit. That way the verse is difficult. And then the message that comes out of the verse, a faint heart guy cannot take that message, I tell you. So, Karminaha means ritualists. Karmi, one who is given to rituals. Karminaha. Iha, in this world. So, they always a sankalpa they do. Sankalpa sukhaya dukkha mokshaya sankalpaha. So, what is the sankalpa? What is the goal that he has in mind? The goal is very much articulated in that ritual as part of the sankalpa. So, and sometimes, suppose you have a desire which is a bit unusual, a modern desire. As the society moves forward, modern issues will come and modern desires will be there. Now you have to put this blessed modern desire in the language of Sanskrit. That you have to do. Because you have to put it into Sankalpa. Sankalpa you cannot do it in English or Telugu. You have to do it in Sanskrit only, because then the Purohit must know Sanskrit. He doesn't know Sanskrit. The Purohit doesn't know Sanskrit. Very unusual situation. Very rarely you come across a Purohit who can make a Sanskrit sentence. Leave alone making a sentence, he cannot even understand a sentence sitting there. He doesn't know. And then he starts spinning compounds, samasa padas, he starts spinning. And they are all full of Sanskrit grammar mistakes. You feel sad to sit and listen there. People sometimes ask me, Swamiji, you come and sit, some ritual is going on in Secunderabad. I say, let me sit in my room. Not there. Why? What is your problem? We'll give food and all that. No, I can go and sit, but if the Veda Pandits are good, their mantras are good, they do ritual properly, I can come and sit. But they don't say mantras properly, they don't know any Sanskrit properly to put the sentences in the right way in the sankalpa. So all kinds of compounds they start putting in the sankalpa which you feel very bad. You don't feel good about the language and the grammar. Anyway, that is what is sankalpa. So, Vesa Praptyartham, something. I said it correctly. He may not say it correctly. I said it correctly. So, and then he performs the ritual. What is the general aim of the karmi, the ritualist, in doing all these sankalpas and then rituals? Sukhaya, dukkha mokshaya. Whatever may be the desire, whether it is vesa or wealth or children or whatever, home or whatever, it is ultimately freedom from dukkha, suffering, and gaining of sukha. That is the purpose. Okay, he has performed. Then sada apnoti, he always gets. So what he gets? So but he gets what? Dukkham. Always gets dukkham. Which is very true. Suppose you purchased a lottery ticket. Just I am telling you one particular case. In medicine they have case study, right? Like that, let us do a case study. So he purchased a lottery ticket. And after 1 week, the lottery will be declared. And in this 1 week, he performed one long ritual of propitiating the goddess of wealth or whatever. The appropriate ritual. For gaining wealth, there are rituals, they know. For any, you mention the desire, I will tell the ritual. It is like that. Therefore, there are rituals, a series of rituals he performs. Now, the day of lottery came. Let us say the lottery khul gaya. He got it. Okay? Will he be able to remain happy in his life? No. He only gets lottery. He will not get happiness. And not only that, he gets unhappiness, dukkham. And this dukkha, he planned for it and got it. So nobody gave him this dukkha. Ihaya, he worked hard for it and gained dukkham. You see what happens, the general principle is the attachment for the pleasures, called Vishaya Raga, the attachment for the pleasures. That, and so you work, because of that attachment, you work for gaining pleasures. So that creates in your mind a value for these pleasures. A value. You see, doing a ritual and getting one pleasure out of it and enjoying it for a while and then keep it aside, the job is done, one time we have done it. It's okay. But it doesn't go like that. It becomes a cycle from which you cannot escape. Because the attachment for the pleasure, and you are driven by that attachment and go and find out and do a karma, a ritual, and then the ritual comes successful. Let us assume the ritual comes very hard to prove whether it comes successful or not, because the rituals are not supposed to give drushta phala. You cannot connect like that. It's very hard to establish that the ritual is done, therefore the result came. Very hard to establish. Unless you have a lot of fertile imagination and wishful thinking, it is hard to establish cause-effect relationship. In fact, Shastra itself doesn't give any such cause-effect relationship. It says generally, by performing karma you will get phala. In general, you do perform many karmas and many phalas, they work out each other. You cannot pinpoint which to which. Generally you can tell. Anyway, let us assume that the phala is acquired. Then you become so ecstatic. Oh my goodness, my attachment is correct. The karma that I have taken up with attachment is correct. The result is fulfilled. Therefore, result is great. Like that, a value for the pleasures will be created in the mind. And that as the value for these pleasures increases, that creates a samsara in the thought life of the person. That is how samsara gets well established in the thought life of the person. Once samsara is established, it leads to a long chain of actions, more and more rituals, endless cycle of rituals, desires, their fulfillment, this and that. This is the samsara. There cannot be greater misery than this. There cannot be greater folly than this. Therefore, dukkham apnoti. Assuming that in that case study, assuming that his desire is fulfilled, his ritual became fruitful, and he got the lottery and he acquired a few $1 million, suddenly he became rich. So suddenly acquired riches, they will make the person miserable in life. There is such a heavy downside to these sudden riches. Why sudden riches? To any riches for that matter. Such a heavy downside will be there. People do not understand all that. They go after that. Raja, Maharaja, kings, great kings, they have enjoyed great bhogas. What is the outcome? What did they get at the end of it all? A load of misery. That is what they get. Therefore, people ask me about ambition. An ambitious man ends in despair. That is the truth. Because let us assume that the ambition is fulfilled. If the ambition is not fulfilled, despair is sitting on his head from the very beginning. Let us say ambition is fulfilled. So, he will find himself in the seventh heaven. In the clouds. He is in the clouds now. So that state, that excited state of fulfillment of ambition is very despairing in a different way. It is very painful and despairing, not in the other way, but in a different way it is very despairing and painful. Because it is a giddy, self-satisfied state. Very giddy it is. I wanted to get 1 million and I got 1 million. So it is a very giddy, self-satisfied condition. And in that condition, he will not be able to understand his mind, his body, his self. So he will remain in a permanent ignorance of these basic things. And that will eventually push him into misery. Therefore, these karmas and their fulfillment and the result, immediate result may sound very fruitful and all that, but eventually as the consequences build up, he will end up in misery. That is the verse, you may want to see it again. Sukhaya dukkha mokshaya sankalpaha iha karminaha sada apnoti ihaya dukkham. Iha means an action performed for a desire always ends in misery. It's not that by performing a karma for wealth you will get misery. No, not like that. By performing a karma for wealth you will get wealth. Only you will get wealth, nothing else. And that wealth will eventually push into misery. By performing a karma you get a power, and that power will push you into misery. You see, there was a brahmachari. He was not getting married. Then he performed a ritual and got married. And then daily morning he regrets what a useless miracle I have performed. So it is like that. So he wanted to marry a wife, so he got wife. Okay, that's all. There it ends. So the karma has done its job. Now he has to, you see, one gentleman, he came to me in the ashram and said, I am getting married to the young girl that I love, and my parents are not agreeing, they are not even coming to do blessing to me. Swamiji, you come and bless us. So, okay, he has performed in the ashram. Otherwise, I will not go to marriage and all that. So, in the ashram. Therefore, in the ashram means, so when I am the only Swami in the ashram, then you go along with a few things. And so I went and put blessing and came back. And 2 years are over. And suddenly one morning he appeared. I blurted out, "Where is your wife?" He said, "Swamiji, I came to discuss that only with you." Now what? So I applied for divorce. So I want to do a ritual. And our Purohits are planning a ritual. Because the divorce is a very prolonged thing it is a very rough patch in life. I want to come out of it. Come out with minimal loss and all that. And so, therefore, I want your blessing. So I told, okay, chalo. So one more time blessings. Afterwards he did not appear. So because his divorce must have been fulfilled, it will go through, It will go through. What else will happen? The divorce will go through. Some money will be gone. And so this is how what rituals and what desires, what phalas. Therefore, the ritual will give you the result. True. It will do its job. But the consequence will be suffering only. Okay. So, sada apnoti ehaya dukkham. Sada, always, ehaya, by ritual, dukkham, misery, suffering, apnoti, gains. But still something is left in that verse. You may say, anihaya sukhavrutaha. Suppose you do not have a desire. Then what happens? Sukha, joy will come and engulf you. Yeah. Because when you demand nothing of the world, nor of God, don't demand anything from the world. Don't demand anything from God. Means you seek nothing. You expect nothing. The supreme state of bliss will come to you uninvited. Because desirelessness is godliness. This verse, there is a verse in Kathopanishad, and it repeats in Brihadaranyaka also. Very beautiful verse. And it is a verse, very interesting verse. It makes you pause and think. That kind of a verse. Very simple. Yada sarve pramuchyante kama yesya hridishrita. First half. When this person's heart, whatever desires are there, they are all given up. That is the first half. Yada sarve, all. Sarve means all. All means all. All doesn't mean some. Okay? Because all, A-L-L, all is equal to some. You should not write like that. That is not the way to give meaning to verses. All is not equal to some. All means all. So, prajahati yada kaman geta sarvan partha manogatan yada kaman sarvan. Sarvan means what? All. All kaman. Not some kaman. Or not selected kaman. Some kamas I will select and throw away. Because Sri Krishna wants me so badly, he wants me to throw away kamas. So let me select a few and I will reject them. No. Sarvan, he says. So, yada sarve pramuchyante kamaha ye asya hridishritaha. So then what? Atha then martyaha amruto bhavati. The mortal becomes the immortal. Atha martyo amruto bhavati. And then atra brahma samashnute. He gains the Brahman here and now. Desire, this is the challenge. Now you should test this mantra. You should test it. This is not meant for recitation and some punyam elsewhere. It is meant for testing in life. You have to test it. So, that is the test. When you demand nothing of the world and nothing of God, when you seek nothing and you expect nothing from anything, then the supreme state of bliss will come to you uninvited. That is the beauty of desirelessness. Nihaya sukhavrutaha. So, the one who is filled with joy due to desirelessness ever reaps misery through desire. So when you are desireless, you are spontaneously happy. And the moment you fall into a desire, that will push into a ritual, that will bring the phalam, the desired phalam, which will create a cycle of suffering and actions. So, this is how Prahlada is a great acharya of Vedanta. He is Jnani Bhakta, Prahlada. So that is how he looks at these desires. He has something more to say. Kaman kamayate kamyaihi yadarthamiha purushaha savai dehastu parakyaha bhanguro yatyupaiti cha. Yeah. So, kamyaihi kaman kamayate, purushaha, the human being. So he performs kamyas. Kamya means the kamya karma. The karma which is aimed at this class will be like this only. I am telling you one more time. So please make your mind clear. It will be like this only. If you want me to come one more time, it will be like this only. So Purushaha, the human being, iha, in this world. So kamyaihi, through the kamya karmas, by performing the rituals aimed at fulfilling desires, kaman kamayate, he desires those things which are very desirable. So the things that he wants, pleasures, etc., he desires and he performs these karmas. All these desires, when they are fulfilled, so they are meant for enjoying with this body, yadartham, this body. You need a body. Suppose this man, he desires some pleasure, promotion, and performs a ritual, and the promotion came. But he has no life left. By the time promotion came, his life has come to an end and he doesn't live even a few months after promotion. Then what that promotion will do? He should live, having gained the pleasure or the desire fulfilled, he should live for a while to enjoy that desire. So that is the body. Therefore you need the body. So yadartham, for the benefit of which body and mind you are doing all these karmas and acquiring all these desires, savai dehaha, that body. Did you ever pay attention to that? Too. But on the other hand, that body is parakyaha. That is the word. This parakyaha is a very interesting word. Its meaning is explained in different ways by the acharyas. In the commentary, I don't have the Sanskrit commentary with me. I did not bring it. It is sitting in my room. So the translator will help us. You see, parakyaha means, suppose you throw food onto the street. Don't say we don't do it. You take the example where they do it routinely, not a problem. So, we throw food on the road. They just throw food outside. What will happen to that food? So, dogs will eat it. And if dogs, whatever little is still left after the dogs eat, so small creatures, ants, etc., and small crawling creatures, they will eat it. So that food is called parakyaha. And this body is parakyaha. Did you ever pay attention to what happens to this body? it will lose its life. Life is sustaining it. And when the life is gone, it will go sooner than anybody expects. So you should not expect that things will go smoothly and slowly. They don't go slowly. The time runs fast. And therefore middle-aged people become old very quickly. And old become very old very quickly. And very old die away. Assuming that he lives full life. So, but you never know. And therefore this body, it becomes a parakya. So to make things easier for me, I will read the translation. The very body for which the individual hankers after enjoyments through actions performed from motives actually belongs to others. This body doesn't belong to you. For the body's sake, for the enjoyment of the body's sake alone, all these karmas are performed and results acquired. But by the time the results come, the body doesn't belong to him, it belongs to others. In bracket he says, in that it is sure to be devoured by dogs and jackals, crows and vultures, if left uncared for after death. That is the body. Parakyaha. Suppose this is how they do. There is the Parsi community is there. So they take the body and leave on a hillock. Parsi Gutta. Gutta is hillock. In Hyderabad we have a locality called Parsi Gutta. And so there is a hillock. So if anybody Parsi guy dies, they pull that body and they pull it. Some heavy set persons have to pull it. You have to pull it off the hillock, So they pull it. Pull it means here they have a truck with a huge arm and all that, which will put it there. In India you don't get all those things. Just pull only. Literally pull it. Tie a piece of rope and pull it. If one person cannot pull it, let two people pull it. Somehow they will pull it to the top. And then the ropes they won't leave because they will be useful. This body is useless. The ropes they will untie and bring them with them. And then they leave it there, the body. Which is the body? With this body alone, he has to enjoy all the results of the actions that he performed. That is the body. Now the crows and vultures have that body. If that is not that is one of the alternatives. What could be the other alternative? It becomes ashes. That is another alternative. What could be a third alternative? It becomes a tomato. There used to be a Swamiji called Swami Vishnu Devananda. He is a great Mahatma. He used to come to Vedanta class with a tomato in his hand. Always a tomato is always there. Then he used to tell, where from this tomato came? Well, it came from that place where we have put one tomato plant, and but below that one body was buried. And therefore that body disintegrated and mixed with earth. That is what will happen to the body. And then the earth becomes very fertile now, and therefore the tomato came. And interestingly, why a tomato should come? Because the body is nourished by the tomato in the first place. Therefore tomato, body, and then he used to eat a small piece of it. And so eat a small piece of the tomato and give another prasadam also to the people. So the tomato is this body now. The tomato is the body. And the body becomes earth. And from earth again tomato. Tomato to body, body to earth, earth to tomato. That is what it is. There is no fourth, only three, no fourth. That is the body. And for the sake of enjoying pleasures with that body, you are doing kamya karmas. What an intelligent person you are. Like that he talks. So savai dehastu parakyaha bhanguraha. Bhanguraha means what? You see, I give you an advice based on the word bhanguraha. Don't have very soft stones in bathroom. Don't make that mistake. If you have money, you spend it in a different way. But in bathroom, you have tiles, some rough and tough tiles only you should have. So very cheapest tiles, rough. Or even you don't need tiles. Just put some cement and do like that and leave it. So that when you step into the bathroom, it should be very rough. You won't slip. It should be like that. But in India, this wisdom I got when I visited a hospital. One of the people who is known to us, so fell in the bathroom, and there is a hairline fracture to the hip, or hip bone broken, and the person is 70 years old. Young people won't fall. Even if they fall, they spring, get up. Young and middle age, no issue. But old age, so the hip certainly gets broken. Hip or thigh bone, whatever. And then in hospital, such a suffering it is. Hip replacement or hip replacement is here. In India, nobody will do, I am sure. It is too big a thing. Normal people won't do. And it is an extreme suffering. So I went to see this person in the hospital. And in the hospital, the entire ward is full of such cases only, orthopedic ward. And all of them, no exception even, are elderly people who have fell in the bathroom and arrived in that ward. 70 of them. What a misfortune. Why should you have a cozy, costly bathroom? What is the thing that we do in the bathroom? Put some water on the head. You are not sleeping there, you are not enjoying there anything. Just to put water on the head. Why bathroom should be having such wonderful fittings and very soft, smooth floor? Why should it have? And when water falls on the floor, you won't even see the water. Water won't appear. Here water doesn't fall on the floor. I am telling about India. There is a lot of water on the floor. And you don't see water. And you put a small step there, a routine step, it will slip. Momentarily you hold on to something, you are safe. But if you slip, in old age, bhanguraha, the body can break to pieces anytime, anywhere. That is what the body is. It will break to pieces. And you will not be able to enjoy anything with it. Suppose you do a great kamya karma at the age of 50 and its result comes at the age of 70, you will not be able to enjoy it. Because the body is already disintegrating. So what a misfortune. So yati upayiti cha. So the body, it will go. By the time you get the result of this karma, the body will go. And then another body will come. It doesn't stop there. This is all misery. So, in fact, kamaha hridaya granthi. You see, the word hridaya granthi, you have to understand correctly. So, this is a section where Shastra has a particular vision. You may like it, you may not like it. You means not you necessarily. Generally people, some of the people may not like it. They don't like such descriptions. They say, why should you describe body like that? Why you are using language which disturbs people? The aim is to disturb people. You shake them up thoroughly. Very thoroughly shake up the people. Because they are in deep slumber of ignorance. So shake them up. That is the purpose. So if you don't shake up, then what is the use? So anyway, so hridaya granthi. You know, vidyate hridaya granthi. You must have heard the expression hridaya granthi. Granthi is a knot. There can be a granthi to the body, which is called cancer. When there is a granthi in the body, it is the cancer. It is a very dangerous growth it is. So, malignant growth. That is the granthi in the body. Then there is a granthi in the hridaya, means in the mind. The granthi in the mind means like cancer to the body, desire is to the mind. That is the granthi. So, kamaha hridaya granthi. You see, I would say the message comes out very clearly when the life is obsessed by desires and fears. The life becomes filled with the strife and struggle, because desires and fears means you have to struggle. And when you are struggling for desires, somebody else is also struggling for desires, there is a clash and there will be strife, conflict. So that is the path of desires and fears. And in these desires, fears, the strife and struggle, there is no meaning at all. They are utterly meaningless and joyless. There is no joy. And these desires and fears which people entertain are not normal. They are very abnormal. There is nothing normal about the desires of the people. You see, a person, he desires something. The desire makes some sense only when there is an acute identification with the body. Then only the desire becomes meaningful. So, is it normal to be acutely identified with the physical body? Is it normal? No, it is not normal. It is very abnormal. So, generally, we should live beyond the threshold of body consciousness. That is the very basic requirement of a spiritual seeker. We have to live beyond the threshold of body consciousness, so that then you can address the mind and then slowly develop a distance from the mind also. That is what we have to do. Instead of doing that, moving in that direction, people get acutely identified with the physical body and then get obsessed with the welfare of the physical body, which can never be secured. And then based on such identification, a set of desires and fears will be there. And now you start doing rituals to fulfill those desires and to appease those fears. What is normal in it? It is the most abnormal way of living a life, most unintelligent way of living a life. Therefore, that is not the way one has to live. Kimu vyavahitapatya taragara dhanadayaha rajyam kosha gajamatya bhrutyapta mamataspadaha. Anything which creates a sense of mind, mamata, a sense of mind, this is my thing. Anything which creates that kind of a sense, it is ultimately a source of pain and suffering only. Anything. That is what is called identification. Mine, M-I-N-E, mine, mama, mamataspadaha. Anything becomes an object of mamata, mineness, the feeling of mine. And whatever becomes an object of that feeling of mine, it becomes a source of conflict and strife. Therefore, one should live entirely without the sense of mind. It is not about sannyasis or any such thing. It is not about sannyasi. A sannyasi who believes that something is mine, he will suffer. Like Grihastha who believes that something is mine, will suffer. The sense of mine is the culprit. So, because as you crave for something, saying that this is mine, what that something could be? Apatya, dara, agara, dhanadayaha. He gave a list. Though appearing as something worth seeking to be sold, the very ocean of eternity. How much more so are one's progeny, wife, house. So, vyavahita apatya. Apatya is progeny. Okay. The case of one's kingdom treasury. That are connected with the jiva, only indirectly. Yeah, I got it. In the morning meditation I suggested you consider this proposition, this thesis, namely Suppose I am not the body. You consider it, think about it, because you are not going to keep the body forever. You have to lose it, you know. So, therefore, when we are going to lose it anyway, why not consider the possibility? Suppose I am not the body. So what? Now, you cannot say my wife, my husband, out. Because my wife is, there is no my wife, there is only body's wife. There is only body's husband. That is the meaning of Vyavahita. Between I and the object, there is a one more intermediate thing standing there, and that is the body. Therefore, I can say, my son, apatya is son. My son, I can say, only by missing the intervening body. Body is intervening. Ahamasmi, the awareness which is I am, and my son, between the awareful being which is myself and which is the son, my son. To say it my son, there is a body in between, Vyavahita. So how can you say it is my son? There is a body in between. So the body is not you. It is not yours. Therefore, how the son can be my son? That Vyavahita is there, you know. So like that. Vyavahita apatya. Intervened by body, the son or daughter. Dara, wife or husband, life partner. Intervened. The body is intervening. Apatya. Agara, home, my home. What my home? Your home is body. And this is body's home. Why you say my home? You say my home is the body. You say that you are safe because there is no intervening. But if you say a building is my home, you are missing the intervening the body. The body should say, hey, why you talk like that? Here I am. It should say. That is called the alertness. So, the agara, dhana, my wealth. What my wealth? If you go to the bank, you have to show your passport, identity, you have to show. Identity, what you will show, awareness you will show, or photograph you will show. Body is there. So, body is intervening between aham, the awareness, and the wealth. Rajyam, my kingdom. This is about Hiranyakashipu and others. Kosha, my bank account. Kosha is bank account. My bank account. What bank account? It is not my bank account because body is intermediate. Gaja. Gaja is elephant. Elephant means a car, a Mercedes Benz. It's the Gaja in modern. So you have a car which you cannot call my car. It is not my car. It is a car. And now I will use it. That is fine. But my, and then Amatya is the king, my minister. What my minister? Bhrutya, my servant. This is India. My servant. So people who are well-to-do, the so-called rich people, they keep a servant. And how insensible you must be to keep a servant. Suppose the servant is a 12 or 15-year-old girl, which is quite often so. And a 15-year-old girl. This man's daughter and son, they are 10 and 12. They are going to school. And this girl has to carry their bags and drop near the school and has to come back and wash dishes. How much one should be insensible to allow such a situation? How can they do it? This is beyond me. If I were to be in that position with that kind of wealth, I will not be able to do it. I cannot do it. If somebody wants to carry my bag, I will check whether he is younger to me or not. If he is younger, I will allow him to carry my bag. If he is of same age or elder to me, I will never allow that to happen. Because the elderly people, they study with me. They want to carry my bag. I say, no, not you. Why, Swamiji? Arre, you don't say you don't want to carry my bag. You are not going to carry my bag. Because your knees are as bad as my knees, why should you carry my bag? A young man come, okay, you carry. You should be sensible. That sensitivity, I think the riches and the self-aggrandizement arising out of riches makes the people insensitive, I suppose. So how can you say, my servant? There is no my servant. A lady comes and cleans the room where I live. She is not a servant in my opinion. I never looked at her as servant. I call her very respectfully. And I never say my servant. And I treat her like another equal human being. And she is surprised by my treatment herself. She never gets the treatment in anywhere else. So I am just saying that because I wanted to say that. Because people are very insensitive and they should develop that sensitivity. It is not about a personal thing that I am saying. It is about a principle of sensitivity. So saying that my servant and apta, my relative. What do you mean by my relative? Kya baat hai? The relative is one. Badhnati iti bandhuhu. His relative means what? He binds. You call him relative, he binds. And so you waste his time, he wastes our time. Last Sunday I came to your home. This Sunday you come to my home. Better you say, last Sunday I wasted your time. This Sunday you come and waste it. It is better to talk like that. At least we know what we are doing at least. Relative. Somebody is getting married in India and all people from Canada and America take flights and go there. You give money to Continental and other people, you have some extra money and you have the energy to bear with jet lag. All that is fine, but attending marriage is the one thing which is utterly unnecessary. Because the young man should be there, young girl should be there, and the Purohit should be there. Why all of us there? Waste of time and energy, and a waste of food for them also. So, is apta. What relative? You have to find time to sit and meditate, reflect and study, and be loving and be giving. Don't say anything as mine. I mean, the sentence, the word usage is not the issue. The sense of mind that one keeps in the mind is wrong. So we'll continue with it. Om Purnamadaha Purnameva Vasishyate